Hello, everyone. Um, Very good evening again from Port Moresby. I again welcome you all to the fifth Instagram live conversation with Gary Juffa. So this is the fifth Instagram live conversation, but a continuation from episode number 2, which is a series of conversation with Honorable Gary Juffa. He is the governor for Oro Province, and he has been the governor for Oro Province since 2012. He has done a lot of work in the area of advocacy, in terms of environment, protecting the environment, looking after land, um, and all the other aspects of responsibilities that are deemed for a politician to do. So he is not just someone who um, is just a politician. He is also a leader as well in terms of his passion and his work in the area of activism, especially environment protection, advocacy on land rights, protection of the land, um, illegal logging, fitness, arts. These are some of the things that we'll cover in session series number 3. But today, the focus of the conversation is on him as a political leader as well as an activist. So the conversation is gonna be focused around politics and activism and how these two um, can be differentiated in one phase or the other, and in the life of someone who is a leader, like a politician, and also has a passion in activism, how can that be differentiated? And of course, we will also go into talking about areas where he is working in right now as the chairman of the chairman and deputy chairman of two parliamentary committees. So I would really love to focus the topic or the conversation around these two areas of discussion. And the last episode or the last series was great. We got to know him up close and personal as his life growing up in the village, and then coming to where he is now, and then we were able to humanize. We were able to understand and get to know his story and his background, and being able to understand him more, not just as a political leader, but as a person. But now the conversation will be focused on getting to know him as a political leader in today's government, as well as his passion in activism as well. So without further ado, I will definitely check if he's online, and I'll invite him on board. Let's wait. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate every one of you making time to tune in. This is a very important conversation, and we all should be able to listen and learn and ask questions. And I hope towards the end of the show, at least 10 minutes, we will give it to have to look through some of the questions and have them answered. Okay, so let's check again. He's being invited. He just have to accept it and then join. So hello to everyone.
Mm.
Hi.
Hi.
Very good. A very good evening again. Thank you so much
Thank you for having
for
me.
joining me again on this series of conversation with you. I remember the first time I asked you to come on live. I said I'm gonna give you one hour, but then through the conversation, we realized that 1 hour will not cover all the conversations that is needed to be had with you, especially in your area of work. as well as the leader of your province and of this country. So we said we will split up into series, and then we'll have conversation in teams. So this team is specifically focused on advocacy, activism and politics. So your life in politics, as well as your passion in the work that you do in terms of environmental protection, looking after the earth. You go after illegal loggers, all of this amazing work that you do. And of course, maybe there will be some questions asked on some of the things that you probably may educate us on the committees that you are sitting on, the parliamentary committees. On that's Public Reform Commission. That is correct, right?
The
And the Public
Special
Account.
Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reforms, yes.
Yes, that's correct. And then the other one is Special Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Public Accounts Committee.
The Public Accounts Committee, that's correct. So yes, that's right. So thank you so much for joining us again. How was your week, or how is your week starting for you?
It's starting very well. I mean, every Monday I spend most of the day planning, figuring out what I'm going to do during the week, things that I haven't done, things that are outstanding, and what I need to do, and allocating the resources I need to be able to achieve my objectives for the week. So most of Monday is spent doing that. I spend most of Monday, I wake up early and I go to the gym and have breakfast, and then I sit down and map out my whole week, what I'll be doing. I look at what hasn't been done, what is outstanding, and what is yet to be done, and what's in progress, and I make an effort to review and progress these matters that need to be attended to. So, but thank you. It was a good morning, good day.
That's wonderful. And I think I just learned something new from you today. Sometimes on Monday, I just go and I try to get some work done, like straightforward, instead of, trying to review some work and then get my priorities right and then try to execute. So that's a really good tip, and I'm sure a lot of others will appreciate that. To start off, we stopped our conversation at place where we got to know you personally as Gary Juffa, and not as the political leader, not as the activist, but as an individual. And that was interesting for many of the people who messaged and said, we've never known his story, and now we get to see why he is passionate about what he is doing. So on that note, and coming into this team, when exactly during the time when you were growing up, or when you were in the public service, I understand you were in the public service, especially customs, as the commissioner. So was that the moment where you decided to stand for office? Or was there like a something that happened that made you decide, okay, this is the time that I'm going to stand for office? So how did you standing for office came about, like the decision for you to stand for office?
Well, a number of factors, but most of them were firmed, or if that's the right word. I came to the decision to stand for public office after having access to a lot of information in the places where I worked about what was really going on in the country, and I saw glimpses. I didn't fully know what was really going on in the country, but I had access to a lot of information that a lot of people don't normally have access to, and seeing this information and realizing that, where we were as a nation, I thought, my goodness, we need to step up. We need to make an effort. Those of us who have access to this information really need to do more awareness, and really need to get out there and encourage others who are like-minded to step up so that they can really make the effort that's required to make PNG a truly independent, free nation. So whilst working in that area, I came to realize that, one, we were hardly independent. We weren't independent. We, for instance, didn't have economic independence. We were politically independent. That's not, you know, that came about quite easily. We didn't have to fight for it. There was no bloodshed. It was virtually gifted to us. But it's not real independence. Real independence is economic independence, you know, and we were far away from that, you know, and then starting to understand the powerful forces in the country that were controlling the country, that were controlling and virtually owned the economy, and therefore were in positions where they were constructing the future they wanted. And it was not our future, not our future, you know. We were going to be mere consequences of that future, which was their future, you know. It was hardly our future. And it disturbed me that these very powerful forces, ruthless, had zero concern for us as a people. They didn't care about our culture. They didn't care about our future. They didn't care about our benefits, our welfare, and who we were as a people. Did not feature in their world of basically profit and power and a determination to be in charge. So when I started to get access, sorry, I'm reaching for my charger. When I started to have access to this information, I then realized that a lot needed to be done to get us to where we need to be, you know, that we were hardly ever free. And I mean, we're still not free, and we still got a long way to go. But at least there are some who are making that effort now, and at least there are more who are starting to understand this situation and do something about it. A lot more people need to understand it. A lot more people need to do something about it, but we're at least moving in the right direction, I would say, you know. So, and so I was, you know, I worked in customs. I worked in the operations area. I started as the lowest ranking, you know, I was a probation officer. I used to register customs entries for all the imports and exports and excise that was payable in the country. All the import duties, export duties, and excise payable. They would bring entries. These are entries that agents would bring. The agents represent companies that are importing or exporting, or companies that manufacture in the country and need to pay excise on their manufactured products. And we charge duties. These taxes are called duties. They are direct taxes. They are known as direct taxes because they're directly on the goods, on the product, you know. So I had a basic understanding of, you know, what was happening. I learned some interesting things. For instance, I had no idea that we exported stonefish, you know, live stonefish. I thought, who in the world consumes live stonefish? Well, we exported that. Live eels, you know. This is just some of the interesting things that I came across. And then we also imported a lot of interesting stuff. And yeah, so I had a basic understanding of trade. It started to, you know, get into my mind what trade is all about at the coalface, you would say. Then I was working in the enforcement division as a junior investigator and assisting the intelligence division in their work, you know, basically collating data and presenting it to analysts so they could analyze that data and prepare assessments. And, you know, and when you're working in that area, you start having access to a lot of interesting information, you know, and you start to see things that a lot of people don't see. What's happening in your country, the individuals and the companies involved, you know, and it
Like
was...
very bad stuff.
Sorry?
Is it like interesting thing? You said interesting thing. Like, is it good for the country or is it bad for the country? Kind of interesting.
Well, interesting in that it's the reality. It's the reality
Mm.
that you have to deal with, you know. We were starting to also see the emergence of what are called transnational crimes, you know, and to see transnational criminals operating at will and whim in this country, especially in our resource sector, in the fisheries and forestry sector, especially, you know, but also other areas, you know. I mean, there was whole-scale transnational crimes taking place and still taking place that, you know, was just, we weren't able to deal with, you know. So having access to that type of information also gave me some idea about what was going on, especially in the forestry sector. When I started to have a look at what was happening there, it was quite frightening. And then when you started to follow the individuals and companies involved and see who they were connected to and how much of a control they had in your country, of your government departments and in your political landscape, that was pretty frightening, you know. So, you know, that started to make me think. And as I ascended in the organization and had access to more information and saw more and more of what was going on, and then you'd fight, and then you'd reach a point where you can't fight anymore, you know, and then you'd think, okay, I have to be at a higher level. But each and every level, you realize that the enemy is far greater than what you had imagined, you know, and far more powerful than what you had thought. So anyway, I thought maybe the best way to fight these guys is to be in parliament. And so I went into the elections and I was in parliament. I am in parliament. But in there, I realized more revelations that I'm just a person, just one voice, and I can't do much. I can do the best I can with what I have, but the odds are overwhelming against myself and those like me.
Oh wow, that is a lot that you've just shared, and I think for people, especially young people who are not aware of this, and we think that we are independent, and then when we look at the financial capacity of the country, especially in terms of economy, we are not. And you just revealing this and why you stood for. I think it was the best decision you made to stand for election and going on to winning your seat. And now you are still here, um, looking after your province as well as I believe it's not just your province that you are looking after because there's so many that's going on in the country, especially in terms of like you said, like the transnational crimes and illegal logging and all of these things that the bigger forces are governing our financial institutions or governing our government departments in a way that they're not able to make decisions independently. um, and you being in the system or being elected into the parliament during the time, I am sure that you carried on that automatically carried on that passion that you wanted to do something in this area as well, not only focusing on your province but also giving your time in this area as well. So I think it is from my opinion, it is very obvious that you have done so much advocacy in this space. And because of the advocacy, we are able to be aware of what this issue is and that like we can have this conversation like this with you. So, yes, you wanted to say something?
No, I mean, you're correct. I mean, I'm still on a learning curve in many ways. And I just wanted to add here, uh, you know, that you never stop learning. You know, you always keep learning. And in Parliament, I'm learning. Sometimes the education process is painful. For instance, when I went into Parliament, I had this idea that there was a middle bench. Okay, it's referred to in the media, and it's referred to by many people that there is a government, there is an opposition, and there is a place called the middle bench, where you're not supporting either the government or the opposition. You know, you feel that maybe both of them are just flip sides of the same coin. So you want to sit in a space where you think is neutral, or where you feel you can be best able to represent, you know, your people. And you're with your people. You feel that in Parliament, in that middle bench area. This is a fantasy. There is no such thing as the middle bench.
Oh,
Okay?
wow.
There's only the opposition and the government. And I found this out the hard way. I used to sit in this space, myself and Kelly Naru, and there were about 4 or 5 of us. And we sat there and we would ask a lot of questions, and we would, you know, raise concerns about issues that we felt affected Papua New Guinea and Papua New Guineans. And one day I was then told, you have to move to the opposition. I was given a letter by the Speaker's office. And I said to the opposition, no, but I'm in the middle bench, I said, you know. And they said, well, there's no such thing as a middle bench. You're either in the government or the opposition. You've got to go to the opposition. So I left, you know. And a member of parliament came and told me and said, hey, you know, I was asked to leave too, but if you write a letter to the Prime Minister and the government and inform them and go and sit with them and talk to them and say that you're not going to raise these issues, that you're going to behave yourself, they'll let you stay here. And I said, no, that's okay. And I went to the opposition. And that was an interesting lesson. I then found out that there's no such thing as a middle bench. So if there are aspiring political candidates who feel that there is a middle bench in Parliament, there isn't any. There should be. I honestly think there should be. You know, I honestly think that if the opposition and the government both do not adequately represent the people, there should be a third place, maybe an upper house, but there should be a third place where elected officials who feel they represent their people more so than the government and the opposition should be able to sit and congregate. That's what I think. I'd like to make that happen. I've been discussing this with a few members of parliament, and there are a number of them who agree. Whether they'll agree enough to make it happen or not, I'm not sure. You know, because to pass laws, you need a majority, you need a certain number of people to agree to it. I can bring a private member's bill, but whether it'll be supported or not, I'm not sure. You know, and I have to determine whether this is something that requires constitutional amendment. I'm not sure. But I honestly think that there should be a place where people who really feel they represent the interests of Papua New Guinea and Papua New Guineans ought to sit, you know. Because oftentimes, I'll tell you, opposition and government can be the same. And there are certain issues that they may both agree not to raise or address or focus on or work on, you know. And that's a reality, you know. That's the reality. So I'm learning that too. I'm also learning that a lot of people will remain silent so that they can receive the funding they need to be able to build the classrooms and the roads and give the services that their people want. You know, so they're going to make a sacrifice, they feel. The sacrifice of speaking up and being, you know, being concerned about issues and addressing these issues, raising these issues, stopping these issues that may be bad for the country. They're going to forego their right to do that so that they can have grants or funds and go and develop these projects that make their people happy and that therefore will allow them to be re-elected. Okay? So
Yes.
that's the situation in our parliament that exists. So in this way, you will find that, you know, the people are also to be blamed, you know, because the people demand that of their leaders. The people demand their leaders to be project managers, to go and bring a bag of goodies for them and build a classroom and a road. And they don't want their leaders to be speaking up on national issues. For example, on social media, I get criticized by my people a lot. They're like, forget about national issues. Why are you talking about this? You talk too much. Come home. We need a road. We need this. We need that. You know, my views are that I represent the people of Papua New Guinea. Okay, I'm going to do my part. Our people deserve to be heard. And these are concerns, these are issues that we have to raise. And for example, when Joko Chandra was given citizenship in Papua New Guinea, this guy's an Interpol criminal fugitive. Why didn't anybody speak up against that? Well, I did, and a few others did too. And as a result of that, an investigation was triggered and initiated, and eventually the ombudsman confirmed that I was right, And there was so much focus and attention to him that he didn't stay in the country, and eventually he was arrested in Malaysia and locked up. We have to speak about that. Then you look at seabed mining. We were, very angry, and we were able to harness the people of our country and rise up and raise this issue and say, this is a terrible thing to do to your own people. This activity, which has never been tested anywhere else in the world, which has serious potential consequences for our oceans and therefore the life, especially of our coastal communities. And you know what? I was very embarrassed to note and very saddened to note that many people from the coastal areas and the islands, not one of them said anything about it. No one. 300 million is what it cost this country. It was a scam. We've heard the term economic hitman. These were economic hitmen, and they walked away with 300 million. Not only did they come, they were given that money by our government at that time. We spoke about it, I spoke against it, and we did a lot of lobbying in the region and in the world, and eventually, as a result, that scam was put to rest, But do the people want to hear that? A few do, but the greater majority want you to build them a classroom or buy them tickets to go and pray in some other province, or pay for their funeral costs, or stay with them and, attend to their mediation issues that they need you to attend to, or bail them out if they get arrested for committing a crime. They want you to attend to that. They don't want you to speak up against seabed mining, Joko Chandra, these type of things. They don't understand them. The fact is we have to fight to stop this type of things, because if we don't, then we are allowing precedents to be set. And what is shocking and horrible then becomes not so bad. Oh, it's not so bad. It's okay. It can be done. Let it be. And then soon we accept it. And then worse, we expect it. So, so I'm learning. I realized that. I thought people would help and support me. Here's a reality I want to talk about. I call it the 10% reality of social media. All right? And this is a fact. This is an experiment that all of us can carry out. Okay? Say you've got an issue of concern, an issue that really upsets you. But pick one. Pick an issue that really upsets you. Okay? Whatever. You say the taxes are too high, which they are. Taxes in our country are 45% income tax for expatriates and 35% for Papua New Guineans. It's the highest tax in the region. Fiji pays 15%, by the way. So anyhow, say you're upset about that, and you go and you post on social media, and you say, I'm very upset about this. And then soon enough, you'd get about 1,000 people all raving and ranting and very angry and very patriotic and, almost ready to have a revolution. So you look around and you say, okay, there's 1,000 of you there. You say, okay, guys, 1,000. That's great. Let's all meet at Jack Piddick Park tomorrow at 10 a.m. And everyone's going to say, yes, count me in. By the way, I've actually done this, and I've seen how it works. So I'm actually relating to you some of my own research, okay, and the results of my research, okay? So Jack Piddick Park, let's meet there at 10 a.m. in the morning. We're going to march, okay? I guarantee you, from that 1,000, 10% will turn up. So Jack Piddick Park at exactly 10 a.m., there you are, ready to march for something that you're very concerned about. You counted 1,000 people. In your mind, you're thinking they're going to go and tell another 10 people each. We'll probably have around maybe 9, 10, 12,000 people maybe. And guess what? You turn up there and only 10% will be there. That's 100. That's 100, if you're lucky, if you're lucky. And they'll be like, yeah, look, we're concerned about these high taxes. They're terrible. We're paying too much. We need to do something about this. Let's go and demonstrate in front of Parliament. And you're all agitated and you're all angry and you're ready to march. And you say, okay, guys, let's do it. Let's march. There's only 100 of us here because it's 10% of 1,000, but that's enough. We can make a difference. And you start marching, screaming. You say, let's go, and you start marching. Guess what? Only 10%. Out of that 100, only 10% is going to march with you. That's 10. Trust me. 10. Now you walk about now, current placard, you sing out, now you say, lower the taxes, stop oppressive government, make life fair, whatever you're saying, and you've got your slogans and you're carrying your placard and you're really agitated. And there's 10 of you anyway. And then when you're marching, suddenly you see a police contingent, and 3, 4, 5 police cars come. They've been sent there by the government because you guys didn't get approval or something, whatever happened. And then the policemen jump out and they cock the gun and they fire the gun. Bang! There's 10 of you. There'll be 10% of that 10 left. That's only you. That's the reality in this country. Everybody that's out there being patriotic and nationalistic and wanting to change things and wanting to do things, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, they're not going to turn up. That's the reality. I did this. There's a WhatsApp group. I keep getting added to all these WhatsApp groups. So one day I said on this WhatsApp group, everyone talking about corruption, very upset, very agitated. We need to do something. We need to save our country. We need to make a difference, So I said, hey guys, let's meet at Ella Beach. I'm in town, I'm in Moresby, and I'm going to be walking. I normally walk at 5 o'clock in the morning at Ella Beach when I'm in town, and I'll be finished at about 6 o'clock. Okay, and I'll be finished at where all these, the way it says make Port Moresby great or amazing Port Moresby or whatever, there's a sign there. I said, I'll meet you all there, and everyone's, instantly people started inboxing me and said, oh, I can't make it. I'm in Leh. Oh, I'm sorry. My daughter's having this issue. Oh, my son's been sick. Oh, my wife doesn't want me to go out that early. She gets suspicious. Whatever it is, nobody turned up. I counted less than 5 people, in that WhatsApp group of more than 400 or 500 people. Only 5 people. They turned up and we had a chat. And we said, okay, well, we've got to have momentum. Let's organize to have a meeting. And we had a meeting, and from that 5, about 3 of these people turned up for that meeting. I mean, I knew this was going to happen, but I wanted to do this so that I can remind myself of what the reality is like. Okay, what the reality is like. So I'm learning that in Parliament. And unless this changes, then we're going to still face the same problems day in, day out. We're just going to be in a downward spiral, if we're not careful. I mean, I have hope. There seems to be light at the end of the tunnel, but is it a real light or is it a LED lamp from Chinese Lot 51 type organization? Who knows? Anyhow, sorry, continue.
No, this is amazing. I'm like blown away by this. I mean, you just broken down the reality of our people and like how we think, the mindset. Our mindset is so way back that we are thinking about ourselves and we are not thinking about the future. And you shared something about when people, like my understanding of politicians or being a political leader is to make policies, right? That's in the books.
Yes.
The book tells us that politicians are there to make policies. But in reality, in Papua New Guinea, that's not the case. They expect you as a political leader to be feeding them. I mean, like, not feeding them, but that's not the right word. Be bringing services that are supposed to be delivered by the administration of your government, right? Like, yes. For example, if I become a governor of my province, I'm I'm not saying I'm going to stand for governor, but if I become the governor of my province, then I should be working closely with the provincial administrator or the district administrator, so that the work of the service, the nitty-gritties, the anything to do with service delivery and whatnot, it goes to the the public servant, which is the public provincial administrator and the district administrator and everyone like that. And me, I'm just focused on the policies. What is good for my province in terms of policy? So what kind of policy am I contributing to the national level that will directly have an impact on improving the situations at the local level, which is my province. But that is not the case. This is something that is theory. Like you go down to communities around Papua New Guinea, that is not the case. The provincial administrator is probably just relaxing somewhere and he's not doing his part, and the people are then made to look at the political leader as the person who is supposed to be delivering projects at the same time making policies, which is too much of a work. So in that case, I don't know, like it comes back to you sitting on these committees, especially the what is that?
The Special Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector
On
Reforms.
public sector reform. That is correct. The Public Sector Reform Committee.
Yes.
On that note, do you think, since it has been established, I think in the 1990s, 1995, 96, 95, or 93, I'm not sure, but since then, because of the crisis that happened, the financial crisis that happened in the 90s, the public sector reform happened so that the government systems can be improved to deliver and be held accountable and whatnot. So from there until now, as a chairman, do you think we are seeing some kind of improvement in terms of service? I mean, public sector reform in terms of public sector and public services, so that people or the constituencies or the citizens of a particular constituency is benefiting from all these resources or budget that has been allocated to this particular constituency, or we should say the district or provincial government. It seemed to me from observation as a citizen that even though there's successive governments, the reform is not felt at the community, at the community level. So you, as like, I'm sure there are, there was a chairman before you, and then when you took over, do you, just from your opinion, do you think the public sector is a sector that we could trust? We could trust going forward, because successively they have absolutely that, and this is entirely my point of view. It doesn't represent any organization or affiliations that I am attached to, but entirely my viewpoint as a citizen, as a private citizen of this country. I feel like we are not feeling the public sector at the community level and its presence, because they're supposed to be helping take on the service delivery part, and then leaving the policy making part to people like you and the rest of the 110 or 11 members of the parliament. So do you think going forward from now, has the situation improved in terms of public service reform, or do we have some kind of hope that it can deliver to the best of its ability for then probably about 10 million people in this country?
Well, thank you. I'll tell a series of short stories that will answer those questions, and also give you some history in regards to why we are where we are and what efforts had been undertaken in the past. Now, also, I want to state here that everything I say, you should question. Those who are watching, you should fact check This is something that a lot of people don't do. You know, they have smartphones, but they're not too smart when it comes to doing this. You know, you need to fact check, check statistics, check dates, check, you know, what I'm saying, because I'm not going to always get it right. Okay. So let's look at the public sector. The public sector is made up of three areas. You've got the most popular being the public service, known as the civil service, you know, which over time, many say has become the evil service. It's filled with public servants, many genuine public servants who have over time become displaced by public servants. Anyway, that's just a small bit of wit there that I thought I would share with you. Anyhow, so that's the public service. Then you have the state-owned enterprises, the business arm of the government, IPBC, and statutory organizations like Post-PNG, PNG Ports, and you know, all these organizations and authorities, PNG Forest Authority and whatnot. They're all statutory organizations. And then you have the state-owned entities like PNG Ports, PNG Power, Telecom, all these characters. Then you have the discipline forces and the national security apparatus. You've got the police, the CIS, and the army. Then you have, you know, other organizations like the NIO and immigration customs that play or are connected to the national security apparatus. Okay. So do these organizations function for the benefit of Papua New Guinea? Well, right now they don't, you know. That's why we're hoping to undertake a reform so that they can function. No public sector in any part of this world is perfect, but many are very close to. Many are very close to perfect. You know, they're very good. The Nordic countries, for example, you know, and countries like South Korea, and Japan, and Singapore, they've got amazing public sector effort, you know. But for us as a developing nation, taking into account that we're only 47 years old, our trajectory has been downward in terms of development of the public sector in such a way that it could meet the expectations of its clients, primarily the people of Papua New Guinea. Okay, now efforts have been undertaken, piecemeal efforts over the years, but these efforts have been piecemeal, erratic, and they haven't been holistic. You know, there was the 1995 reforms, for instance, and here's an interesting story. What were these reforms about? You sort of mentioned it. You know, oh, they were to improve the public sector so that it could, you know, deliver more effectively and efficiently to the interests, to the expectations of the people. But was it really for that? Or did it happen because of the look north policy that came along? Did it happen because certain resource companies wanted to ensure that the issuance of licenses and permits was centralized in Waigani and no longer left to provincial governments? You know, there's a lot of things that happen for ulterior reasons, and the reasons that you are told are not necessarily the real reasons why these reforms are carried out. Okay. So looking back at those 1995 reforms, it was initiated by the government of Pius Winty, and they were an effort that was supposed to improve, you know, public sector in Papua New Guinea and the delivery of goods and services. But since 1995, it hasn't really done that. In fact, things have gotten worse. If you look at pre-1995, stations and districts functioned. They received funding. They were maintained. You know, many stations were immaculate. They were very clean. They were tiny little economic hubs of activity, thriving activity. After the reforms, things got worse. You know, grass was overgrowing these stations and districts. Buildings started to decay and rot. And public servants weren't able to do much. They were collecting their pay, but they weren't getting the funds needed to attend to their responsibilities. You know, what went wrong? And if you speak to everyone, they will tell you, yes, you know, prior to 1995, they have good memories of their districts and stations. Today, no one has anything good to say about districts and stations. I mean, there are a few that are functioning, but they're an exception. The greater majority aren't doing so well. You know, crime is rampant. The buildings are decaying. Most don't have power, and there's no running water. There's no repair and maintenance programs. Even immunization of children is no longer happening. You know, hospitals and schools don't have the equipment they need, and their workers are too few, catering for a growing population that they can't be able to serve adequately. So what went wrong? What happened? You know, could it be the fact that we introduced GST and therefore forced provinces no longer to collect their own revenues? And since they couldn't collect their own revenues, they had to depend on Waigani for their revenues, and they were only given a portion of that, just 60%, you know. Then if you look at import GST, which is where these revenues come from, there are two ports where these revenues are mainly paid, Lae and Port Moresby. And then these two ports get the greater bulk of funding for the country. And the smaller ports miss out. They only get 60%, you know, and it's often calculated based on those revenues paid by those companies operating headquartered in those areas. And also, then the functional grants are usually calculated based on the population of that province. Incidentally, we don't know the population of Papua New Guinea.
Exactly.
We hardly know that because there hasn't been a successful census for the last 10 years plus, you know, which is strange because you're supposed to base your budget on your population. That's the fundamental statistic you need to know and work on so you can frame the basics of your budget. But we don't know that. We just guesstimate, you know. So, you know, you've started to see a deterioration of services in districts, in stations, and as a result, people start coming into town so that they can access the services that they never used to, you know, that they used to be able to access in the districts, but now they can't, you know.
Yeah.
So that's causing urban drift. And they come and they settle. They have squatter settlements, and some come from such remote areas that they can't go back. Others also come in because there's no law and order, and you know they can't go back, so they want to provide a decent life and an opportunity for their children. You know, so they're coming in town so that their children can have access to better schools. You know, and they can maybe engage in an SME because nobody buys coffee and cocoa out there anymore. You know, so there's no income for them. We can say go back to your province, but what are they going to go back to? Go back to your district. What are they going to go back to? You're thinking, there's no power there. There's no ATMs there. There's no tower to access the internet, you know, and it's not safe anymore because the population has grown, and our population growth rate is the highest in the region at 3%. At an average of 10 million people, we are pumping out 200,000 people every year. Where's their school? Where's their hospital? Where are their roads? You know, who's going to look after them and represent them? And meanwhile, we have a physical infrastructure that's catering to only a specific limited population. Say, for instance, the population, the infrastructure in Port Moresby is supposed to cater for a population of between 100 and 300,000. There's more than 1 million people in Port Moresby. You know, services are reeling, infrastructure can't cope. You know, so those are the situations that have the consequences of a public sector that is not modern, that is not functioning as it ought to. Meanwhile, the public sector consumes 1/3 of the budget. This is huge. If it were a private organization, it would be insolvent. You know, it wouldn't be able to function. So these are the situations, realities that we are grappling with, that we have to do something about. Now, I created the Public Sector Reform Committee in 2012. Before I was thrown out into the opposition, I had done something in customs which I felt could be replicated. In customs, we had modernized customs. You know, we did a restructure. It took me 6 months, And I used only Papua New Guineans. They were young people, and we put together a change management team together, and we did a complete overhaul and restructure of customs. And we separated customs from the IRC. And we were told in the first year that we wouldn't make it. We were told that, you know, you can't survive. You don't know what you're doing. But I was fortunate that I had good members of parliament who assisted us at that time, and I have to name them here. You know, the opposition leader, Belden Nama, was in parliament at that time, and the leader for NA, Patrick Pruich, happened to be the treasury minister. And when I took my submission to them as commissioner, they saw merit in it, and they promoted it, and customs became a separate organization from the IRC. Now, this is another story. Why is it that in developing nations, all the revenue authorities are put together under one umbrella? Did you know that? In every developing nation, all the revenue authorities, tax and customs, are put together under one umbrella. They are known as Internal Revenue Authorities or Internal Revenue Commission. Because we signed up to the World Trade Organization, and we signed up to an arrangement where we as a developing nation are merely here to process and export the raw resources that they need to build their economies at our expense. And we agreed to that, okay? Anyhow, so I said, no, that's not right, because when we are stuck in this organization known as the IRC, I realized from my own experience, we are not meeting our responsibilities to our people by protecting the borders, by protecting the fragile manufacturing industry that was just starting to grow. We were not protecting consumers. We were not getting out there enforcing the law and playing our very important responsible role as a national security entity. We were just sitting there processing exports and imports for wealthy nations. So that's why I separated customs from the IRC. And then we restructured it. And after we had done this, we put everyone on better pay. We organized housing. I created a trust account that allowed us to penalize companies that were not clearing their goods at the wharf in a timely manner. And the private sector used to use this to, many times the private sector blames the government because it's convenient to do so. So whenever they couldn't get their stuff out of the wharf, or for some inefficiency of their own, they would blame us, and then they would pass on the costs to consumers, you know. Well, we put in a law that said, we did some research, and we found out, as members of the World Customs Organization, which ensures that they have experts available to assist us, we found out that the window of clearance for goods is 3 days. So if you don't clear your goods in 3 days, you're going to get penalized. So we put that in law, and we said we created a trust account. So those penalties went into the trust account, and it paid for housing for customs officers, paid for uniforms for them, and we could then afford to house our officers. And then when we did the restructure, I put everyone's pay positions by 4 or 5 points. They were getting better pay. They were being better remunerated. They had homes, you know, and they were therefore able, you know, to feel that they were committed and dedicated to an organization that was committed and dedicated to them. In that first year, we only received, we had 67% of our staff ceiling, and we only received 40% of the budget we requested. But we collected more than 400 million from what was forecast. Actually, 3 days is not, it's not long, trust me. I used to work there, and I know there are people who can clear their goods in 2 days. If your customs agent is telling you that it's going to take longer than 3 days, sack your customs agent, go and find another customs agent. So anyhow, by doing that, we observed that productivity went through the roof. My officers were coming to work. They were at work, you know. They were dedicated. They were doing the best they could because they felt that this organization cared about them. And this is a story I want to tell you. Just prior to 1975 and immediately after, if you went to a district or station, if you went to any district or station in Papua New Guinea, you had electricity, running water, and public servants. And they were all in their office at 7:45 in the morning, sometimes even before that. And they would leave at exactly 16:05, or sometimes later than that. They were committed and dedicated. And their punctuality and their dress and their professionalism was profound. Nobody was chewing and spitting betel nut everywhere, you know. They were dedicated and committed. Most of these guys had never gone to university, but they were dedicated and committed. And, you know, I used to go and see my uncle who lived in Kokoda Station during the holidays. And I'd go and stay with him. And he would wake up early in the morning and go to work. And he had a nice house, 3-bedroom house, small house, you know, but it had a yard. My auntie used to plant vegetables in the back. We used to go and help her plant cow in the back. And every morning he would wake up and pull his socks up and put his shirt on, necktie, tuck in, and walk to the Kokoda District Station office. You know? Na misa ting yang wantla boss ya. Meeting yang wantla manager. But he was a driver. And I had another uncle who was a tractor driver, and he lived down the road, and he had a house too. He had a house too, and he was dedicated to his job. The reason here, or the point here, is that at that time, these people had homes. At that time, they were treated with dignity. Their organization cared about them and loved them and gave them that dignity to be able to take care of their families. So they reciprocated by taking care of that organization and contributing to the building of a nation. Today, directors and managers of government departments are living in villages and settlements, dilapidated, rotting houses. Pay a visit to any of these government-owned institutions. Go to a police barracks, go to even the army barracks today, go to teachers, schools, etc., and you see the state and condition of their housing, and you realize why it's hard to feel motivated to come and serve an organization that doesn't seem to care about you. You know, that's what we want to change. So I replicated that by creating that committee, and I took that idea to the Prime Minister at that time, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, and he said, this is a great idea, let's do it. And he created that organization, and I nominated Bira Kimisopo to be the first chairman, and he became the first chairman. I was a first-time governor, so I wanted to stay at home and concentrate, and I became his deputy. And then I was thrown out into the opposition. So the work that we did, which was to study Fiji, Samoa, Australia, and New Zealand, and how their public sectors work, and then try to use that and come up with our own homegrown model, that work was just completely ignored. Nothing happened to it. So when we changed the government of Peter O'Neill and I came back, I proposed that we revive this committee again and carry on this very vital work of the reforms that are needed, because the rest of the world has moved on. They've modernized their public sector. They're not delivering goods and services. They're playing an ombudsman role, review, audit, inspection, design, develop standards, and maintain them. We're not doing that. Our public sector is running around trying to deliver goods and services. They're trying to carry one big giant chicken to the village. And on the way there, most of that chicken disappears. Sometimes smell That's what's happening with our public sector right now. They're all driving nuclear-powered SUVs in the world. We're pushing a rusty old wheelbarrow that we've never upgraded. That's what we need to do. And what we need to do is have a lean public service sector machinery. And then we can adequately remunerate all of them, pay them decent wages. We should pay them the best possible wages. And then you can have performance-based agreements and hold them to account. So if they don't perform, then you can sack them. Okay?
Yes.
So anyhow, that's the story of the public sector and the reforms and what we're trying to undertake. We're working in partnership with New Zealand, which has the best public sector model in the world, and with Australia and the US, and they're all contributing to this effort. They're very happy, they're enthusiastic, and we are hoping to bring about these reforms. When we return, we will continue. Other than that, we've already created the roadmap framework so that whatever government comes in, we'll take it from there and continue to go. So a lot of work needs to be done, a lot of research still needs to be undertaken, but we've started. And it'll require, significant discipline to get there.
Absolutely agree with you, Governor. And I'm sure we are right on the dot on time. I had some questions to ask about your activism and all of that, but I think you briefly covered that already in the beginning about how our country is being, governed by some other people than ourselves, and that is something that we need to look into as young people who are tuning in to find out more why we are not economically independent and how we can be able to contribute to change that by putting the right people into the decision making platforms and tables like our provincial government and district government as well. Thank you so much, Governor. You've educated us so much about so many things, and I am sure everyone who is listening in and tuning in have, learned so much about public reform as well as the passion that you have in terms of the activism work that you do in environment, protecting the environment, advocating for the sea, the land, everything under the sea, on the land, in the air, everything. I think it's a wonderful thing that you are doing, and you're of course inspiring a lot of young people to take a stand and make their voice heard in all these areas as well. So I will not hold you any much longer. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you, thank you. We appreciate you making time to educate us and everyone who have tuned in. And we look forward to have you again on the next next and the last, which will be the last series, and we'll make it the last. And that will be just getting to know your passion and what you do. Of course, we know you are an avid fitness guru, and you're very concerned about what you eat and all of that. And that is something that, as well as your art as well. So we would like to know about your art as well, what you're doing, and I've gotten some people asking about how they want to purchase what you're creating. So it will be a good topic to discuss. So it's just about getting to know your passion and probably what you'll be doing in the next 5 to 10 years. Yes. So that will be something that we'll discuss in our next session, which will be the last.
No, for sure. Look, I'm looking forward to that, and I would like to thank everyone for their comments, their criticism, their opinions, their alternate views. We're fortunate to live in a democratic country where we can do that. And we should be grateful for that. It's never too late to start changing for the better, and we can all do that as individuals and as a nation. And I look forward to that. There are so many stories that we can talk about in regards to why we are where we are. And at some stage, I'd like to talk to you about that, or talk to the audience. One such story is the story of Papua New Guinea and its independence, and how the Vietnam War contributed to that. And how, not many people realize, but how a very radical Australian Prime Minister by the name of Gough Whitlam had actually prepared a 20-year plan for the economic independence of Papua New Guinea, and it never happened. And why? So there's so much like this that we can talk about. And thank you for having me on here. I'm always happy to talk and interact with our people out there. Art is a release for me. I do little things like there's a painting at the back that I'm working on. I haven't finished it yet. And then I do little ones like this. This is just a little painting that I did recently. Little things like this. They're very, they help me relax. So I suggest that every one of you need to have an outlet of some sort, whether it's fitness or art or something. Make sure that you spend some time doing that and live a balanced life. Eat well, manage what you eat, manage what you drink. You have only one life, only one body. Take care of it, and it'll take care of you. Anyhow, thank you very much. Good night, everyone. And thank you so much, Jan Malin. I truly appreciate this. And until next time.
Thank you. Anytime that you want to talk about an issue and something that you think you need to talk about, you're more than welcome. I can always make time. This platform, you will no longer be a stranger, because I would like to have you more often on this show. And I don't know if it's going to be transformed into something else in the future, onto YouTube or on podcast, but yeah, I would like to continue to have this conversation with you going forward about every issue. We want to know, we want to be educated. Our young people want to know what is happening. So I just saw Charles Abel Honorable Charles Abel, the member for Alagaupen, hopped in on here. So I just want to send a shout out to him if he's still on.
Well,
But thank you
talk talk
for joining us.
talk to Charles about fitness. That guy's fit. He's very
Oh
very fit.
yes,
So he's the real expert on fitness. You know.
I
I
think we all, like as young people, we need to learn about our, how health can contribute to us thinking precisely and contribute to mental health and all of that. Good mental
absolutely.
health, of course. So of course, I mean, you also are a fitness guru as well as Charles, of course. So I mean,
Charles
honorable
is light
Charles.
years ahead. I just do a little bit and try to encourage people to do that. You know. But again, thank
Wonderful.
you and have a great night. Good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Governor.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Really appreciate each one of you for tuning in. This conversation has been very enlightening, and I hope that you can join us on the next series of conversation that will be, the information will be posted soon. So make sure to tune in, follow me, put your notification button on so we can really have conversations like this. So thank you, everyone. And I hope you all have a very, very lovely evening. And for everyone tuning from around the world, it's a beautiful afternoon, evening here in the capital city of Port Moresby. So I wish you all a very good night from Papua New Guinea. And everyone who is tuning in from around PNG, good night to you. And I hope that you have a lovely um, evening and the rest of the night. All right. I'll catch you again on the next episode. We have amazing guest lists, amazing things to talk about coming up. So stay tuned and Conscious Kumul out. Bye bye.